So it was a beautiful, beautiful, crisp September morning. So I finished up with my work and a cup of coffee out in the center court of the Pentagon and made my way to the meetings with the Navy staff. And about 45 minutes into it, the Admiral's aide came running into the meeting and said, "Admiral, quick, we got to see this on TV." And it was a video of the first airplane flying into the World Trade Center building. We watched that, assumed it was some sort of tragic accident. And a short time later, the aide came running in, turned the TV on, and we all watched in horror as the second airplane flew into the World Trade Center. The Admiral stood up and said, "This concludes our meeting," took off for my office. As it turns out, I walked right through the E-ring corridor where, in a short time later, an airplane flew into the Pentagon. So when I'd gotten back to my desk, the first thing I did was call my friend. He was in the Navy Operations Center, and say, "Hey, turn on your TV, you got to see this, and we'll get a cup of coffee later." And then felt a huge vibration, huge blast. Got up from my desk, ran outside, looked up and saw a huge ball of smoke and debris. Ran towards that, made my way towards the conflagration. And as I turned the corner, there's debris everywhere and smoke pouring out of the building and people running to get away. And I'm looking down and looking around, and there's a huge tire from the airplane. So I continued on towards the fire, and there was a hole. So I tried to crawl in, and I could hear people screaming, and I couldn't get in, too hot, too big of flames. Came back out, and there was a heavy, heavy door, and there was a stanchion there, and I started banging on the door, and I could hear people banging on the other side. And I couldn't bust through it. Looked for another way to get in, found another, and another 3 or 4 different places where the debris from what it turns out was the airplane had punched through, and kept crawling in, and finally found one where I could get inside. And at this point, the fire had started melting debris from the overhead, or melting wires and things. So took off my shirt, wrapped it around my head as I'm crawling through, yelling, "Anybody here? Can anybody hear me?" And suddenly there were 3 people who came rushing out from the smoke. And I said, "Follow my voice." And they came to me and pointed them the way that I had just come in, and out they went. And then found my way in this huge area. There, off in the distance, I saw what appeared to be a person who had been crushed. And I remember, yelling, "Are you okay? Can you hear me?" And nothing. So I was about to leave and continue looking for additional survivors. And then I saw a blink. The person blinked. And I was just overwhelmed with, first of all, panic that he was in there and the fire was coming upon him. And it was getting very hot. So I crawled as fast as I could over to him, tried to lift this debris off of him. And I'm yelling for help as loud as I can. Basically pinned between a piece of furniture and his computer. Here comes out of nowhere another naval officer crawling through the debris. Got on his back and basically leg pressed this stuff off as I'm trying to push it up with my shoulder. And we managed to just get it up just enough so I could grab this guy and pull him down the length of his desk and pull him out. After we got him to treatment, me and this other naval officer were just kind of catching our breath, and don't know why, but it just struck me, I'm going back in, and I know he is too. Back in we went, found some more people that were confused and couldn't find their way out, managed to get them through the smoke and the heat. Stuff started really getting bad. Things started exploding. And then it became too hot to remain in that part of the building. Got a few more people free of the debris and out the door. And then spent the better part of the next 12 hours helping the other first responders search for people, found a few pockets of folks who were confused. It was quite a day, and well into the night. When I first got home, the first thing I was thinking about was contacting my family to let them know I was okay. It was about 2 o'clock in the morning. And listened to my best friend's wife's voicemail saying that she hadn't heard from her husband. And I pretty much knew why at that point, that I'd been where his desk was, and it was no longer there, and he was no longer there. He was a great guy. He and I had been roommates for 4 years at the Naval Academy. Best friends. He was best man at my wedding. Just lifelong buddies. We were going to retire someday and be fly fishing guides on the South Fork of the Shenandoah River. That was our dream. Still a dream, and I'll meet him someday in heaven, and we'll talk sea stories. Yeah. The heroism I witnessed that day was just breathtaking, to to this moment, it leaves me almost speechless. The people who came to the sound and rushed to the challenge was so moving and so gratifying. I get goosebumps just thinking about it now, picturing it. Men and women stationed at the Pentagon who had been working there for years. I can still picture one of the janitors that I saw every day. A great guy. I can still picture him dragging 2 big fire extinguishers towards the explosion. Everyone from him to the other men and women I saw rushing towards the disaster. To this day, as I said, it makes me so grateful and so proud and so humble to be part of it.